The scenes so far, and we've seen some of them tonight, have been gruesome and stressing. Could there be even worse in the weeks and months ahead?
I think absolutely there will be worse. I think, a conflict like the one that I think will happen in Gaza will involve a high number of civilian casualties, and that will be terribly sad and tragic. I think we will probably also see Hamas use these hostages, and I don't even want to hazard what they will do with them, but they will use them for propaganda purposes. But we also have to remember here, Alan, this is going to create a heightened risk of terrorism around the world. There are going to be people who are inflamed or wish to replicate Hamas or glorify what has been done, who will engage or be inspired to engage in copycat attacks. And we need to take that threat very seriously, including here in Australia.
Okay, well, just to finish up, you just said the people around the world. Well, everyone knows I live in Macquarie Street. On the local front last night at the Opera House, I found that was horrific. It was a disgrace. You will recall, Dave Sharma, that during COVID, New South Wales Police wouldn't let us commemorate Anzac Day. Is it credible that last night the police seemed too enfeebled to stop a crowd of protesters marching on the Opera House, lighting flares, chanting "Death to Jews" in support of a designated terrorist organisation? Now, Dave, surely the police minister is out of her depth when she's telling Jews to stay at home because the police can't guarantee their safety. And the police seem to be ignoring this behaviour. Who's giving them instructions? I mean, this was sickening anti-Semitism, turning Israeli flags into a bonfire, and this is here in Sydney.
It was shocking, Alan. It made me ashamed to be a resident of Sydney. It made me ashamed to be an Australian, because here we have a day that is meant to be a day of solidarity with Israel, that is meant to allow Jews and others to commemorate their losses and gather together to reflect on the seriousness of that. And instead we've allowed this situation where people who wish to glorify what happened on the weekend, people who think it's somehow heroic to slaughter civilians, are allowed to vent their views, are given a platform for their own expressions of vile anti-Semitism and racism and intolerance and hatred. There was one person in Sydney arrested last night that I'm aware of for carrying an Israeli flag. Meanwhile, these protesters are burning the Israeli flag.
Well, a bloke carrying an Israeli flag was arrested, for God's sake. I mean, here they are burning the flag and carrying placards in support of Hamas. I mean, why aren't these people arrested? Look at the crowds. Our viewers are watching it. Look at the crowds. It was outside my window. Look at them. And there were riot police and police cars and all the rest of it. And you said, Dave Sharma, felt ashamed to be an Australian, and I agree. Are we going to tolerate this sort of nonsense?
We should not, absolutely. This protest should never have been allowed to happen. The police should have intervened much earlier, but it should never have been given the go-ahead to even happen. I mean, the images that have been broadcast around the world from this, we've seen people in Berlin, in Paris, at the Eiffel Tower, at the Brandenburg Gate, turning up to honour all the terrible losses in Israel and condemn terrorism, where the Israeli flag was broadcast on these buildings. And here in the Opera House, instead, we've unleashed a mob that is chanting racist slogans, that is chanting anti-Semitic slogans. People must look at Australia and think, what on earth has happened to that country? What happened to this diverse, tolerant, pluralistic country? How can people be chanting these sorts of things after all the horror that has been unleashed on Israel over the weekend?